Welcome into the Draft Geeks podcast. Today we're going over our draft grades for each team. Going to start in the AFC. We'll do a separate episode for the NFC, but we will be talking about letter grades for everyone, which ones we liked, which ones we didn't like. So hopefully you guys are ready because the Draft Geeks podcast starts right now.
Welcome into another episode of the Draft Geeks podcast. I'm Max Showstack over at the Draft Geek, here with Jace Campbell over at Pat's Drive. This is our first episode we're bringing to you guys after the draft. We did have one after round one. If you haven't heard that one, go check it out. But today we're reviewing the AFC and all of their teams and giving them grades, analyzing their classes. So should be a fun one. Jace, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Ready to talk some NFL draft. I know we took a little bit of a week off, but now we're back ready to grade some of these. Had about a week to sit on most of them. So, we've had plenty of time to gather our thoughts, really dive deep into some of the fits and some of the positional needs and stuff. And so this is going to be exciting.
So we're going to start over in the AFC East, move to the North, South, West, kind of compass order by division. And then we'll start alphabetically just by the name of the team. So Buffalo Bills are going to be first up. Starts with a B. Should we just kick this off right here? I can tell you my grade. You tell me yours, and then we'll go through it. All right.
Yep.
So I gave the Bills a C+. How about you?
I'm not too far behind. I'm at a C.
Okay.
I think where we're not going to like this one at. It's going to be at the top.
It is at the top, and that was reflected in our episode right after the first round. They drafted Maxwell Hairston 30th overall, and just for reference, so you guys know where I'm coming from, and Jace can say it as well, is Hairston was 76th on my big board. And just for reference, in the 6th round at pick 177, they drafted Dorian Strong, who was 94th on my big board. So there's not much disparity inside of 20 ranking spots just on my big board between their 1st and 6th round picks. Drafted an off-man corner that doesn't have a great physical profile, doesn't tackle very well. I honestly don't think there's a shot he goes up here if he didn't run the 40-yard dash that he did. And I know the Bills need speed on the back end, but this isn't necessarily the guy that I would have drafted, even if it's for that. I just think that he's kind of fills a niche need, and 30th overall wasn't a great spot to do that. Beyond the Hairston pick, I like the move for TJ Sanders. They went and got him. I like that player. I know I'm a little higher on him than you are. Landon Jackson's a good football player. I don't mind the Bills taking a swing on Deion Walker. I feel like a contending team is the right team to do it. Maybe 109 is a little bit high, but he was playing with a bad back, so maybe they'll get something closer to 2023, and if they do, it's worth it. I mentioned the Dorian Strong pick. I like it. Jackson Hawes is kind of exactly what they need in their tight end room, so I don't mind that pick either. And then I think Caden Prather in the 7th round could be a pick that people are overlooking a little bit. I think Caden Prather maybe sneaks his way into that thin wide receiver room. But overall, I don't think the Bills got anybody that's like a standout football player, and I don't love what they did at the top. So that's why I gave them a C+.
Yeah, and when you're looking at Maxwell Hairston, I liked Darian Porter. I liked Trey Amos. Will Johnson had fallen to that point. I liked a bunch of corners on the board more than Maxwell Hairston. I'm not surprised they went with a cornerback. I think we mocked that fairly often when we were doing our early mock drafts because they needed help on the back end. But I didn't like where they went there. The move up for TJ Sanders, although he's a little bit further down on my board. I have him, where was he? He was at 85, so that would be a reach in spots for me. I get why they're doing that, like going up, getting a guy. Landon Jackson's a solid NFL player, big frame, stops the run well, maybe has some upside. And then, Jackson Hawes, like you mentioned, he fits next to Don Kincaid, more of a inline pass blocker guy. I like the Chase Lunt pick for them, but I'm going to nitpick it. I get they got Caden Prather. I think they needed to get a 4th or 5th round, maybe even a 3rd round receiver. I think they needed to get someone for Josh Allen. They did not need to take one in the 1st or 2nd. But they needed to take someone earlier than the 7th round for Josh Allen, in my personal opinion. So it's a combination of Maxwell Hairston not being the guy at 30, which for them, that's who it was. But for me personally, it wasn't. And then, not addressing the receiving corp for Josh Allen until pick 240 with
Right.
Caden Prather. So a little bit of a question mark or couple question marks I have there. But moving on in the East, we'll go to the Dolphins. For me, the Dolphins have a C+. Now, I know that this will be a little bit different for both of us because Kenneth Grant is high on both of our boards. I thought they got tremendous value in him. Jonah Savnaye, they move up in front of the Patriots for to get a guard tackle versatile guy. But other than that, I didn't really dig it. I mean, they did not have a third or a fourth round pick, so it makes it a little bit harder there. They had 3 fifths, a 6, and 2 sevenths, so they're getting guys there. Now, I think the NFL Stock Exchange pointed this out, and I'll say it because it is funny. You imagine telling someone that, a year and a half ago, Quinn Ewers and Ollie Gordon were their 6th and 7th round.
Crazy.
But, I mean, other than Kenneth Grant, who I really like, and they needed interior defensive line, and then Jonah Savnaye, who might have been just a little bit overdrafted, but he gives you guard and tackle versatility. I didn't really love the draft. Jordan Phillips is okay. Jason Marshall, I mean, like we said, Ollie Gordon, Quinn Ewers had not had the year like people thought, so I gave this one a C+.
So I gave it a B-. I'm not far behind you, and I think it's just the B- is the difference between where Kenneth Grant is on our big boards. And so I really like Kenneth Grant. It's the first round pick in a minute where I'm like, yeah, Dolphins, good job. Because the Dolphins have had some spotty drafts. I like Jonah at 37. It's what they need. Sure, maybe a touch early in my opinion, but it's what they need. So I like them going up and getting him. They didn't pick in round 3 and 4 like you talked about, but I didn't think they did as good as some other teams did in round 5. There was still value there round 5, round 6 this year, round 7. They didn't get much of it. My favorite day 3 picks they had are like their new RB3 and their new QB2 or 3. And it's just them taking shots on Quinn and Ollie. I do think Ollie is what they need in their running back room. So like maybe that's a sneaky good one. I didn't love what they did with their value here. Obviously, they're hindered by not having a 3rd and 4th round pick, which naturally takes your grade down. You don't get like, oh, it's okay. Like you didn't have a 3rd or 4th round. No, you got rid of them. And then you didn't make splashes on day 3. But, Kenneth Grant and Jonah Savnaye will be what this class is remembered for. And so that sets it at a B- for me. Moving on to your New England Patriots. I'll let you bring this one in because it is your team. I won't tell you what I gave them. I want to hear what you gave them first.
Wait, are we going to skip the Jets because we hate the Jets that much?
We'll do the Jets after the Patriots.
Okay, fine. I was going to save the best for last.
Let's go to the Jets then. Let's
go okay. Start us off with the Jets. I'll finish with the Jets and bring us into the Patriots.
All right, so the Jets got a B for me. I really liked what the Jets did on the first 2 days of this draft. They drafted Armand Membu, who I think is a starter. They drafted Mason Taylor, who I think is a starter and probably the first good tight end they're going to have in a long time. Yeah. And then they drafted Azareye'h Thomas in the 3rd round, which was amazing value relative to my big board, and I think fits perfectly to the identity that Aaron Glenn's trying to build in this defense. That was awesome. Then they drafted Arian Smith in the 4th round, and I almost threw up. I don't see the upside in drafting a receiver with no hands. That's all speed at pick 110. Malachi Moore is, a good leader on the back end of the defense. Francisco Mauigoga. I don't know. I'm going to have to get used to saying that last name.
Because his brother.
Yeah, because we're going to start doing some way too early stuff, and his brother plays tackle for Miami, and he's going to be a 1st-round pick. And then Tyler Barron's like a fun shot in the dark. I think, this is, and listen, to go back to the stock exchange, because Connor Rogers, big Jets guy, and I think he said it perfectly. When he said that he thinks the Jets just lost a little bit of the board on the 3rd day of the draft. But if there's a day to lose that, it's that day. I think they got 3 impact players. If they get what I think they're going to get out of those 3 players, this grade will be higher than a B. But for now, that's where it stands because those guys have yet to take an NFL snap. But I like what the Jets did.
Yeah, arguably the best tackle in the draft was out of Missouri in Armand Membu, and they needed a right tackle, right? They didn't need a left tackle. They needed a Morgan Moses replacement because he left in free agency. They get the best one in the draft, Armand Membu. Mason Taylor's a super young prospect that immediately has starter potential, and he could grow into something really special with his athletic ability. And then Azareye'h Thomas, like you said, another young guy. They took chances on young athletic guys that they can build and develop and grow. And I really like that. Azareye'h Thomas was 51st on my board, and to get him at 73rd with how young he is and how much development he still has is outstanding. And I know I already hit on the Mason Taylor pick, but I'll go back. Like, I just think that them getting Armand Membu in the first round to help that offensive line and then still addressing tight end, because there's a lot of people taking Tyler Warren at 7 and stuff. Well, then what offensive lineman would have been available at 42? There weren't many. So I really love the haul they got there to, hey, let's get arguably one of the best tackles in Armand Membu. And then let's go get Mason Taylor, who's a young pass-catching tight end that has athletic ability that we can develop in an NFL pedigree. And then let's stick with another young, physical, long press man corner in Azaria Thomas. So, yeah, Malachi Moore will be a good special team guy for him. Someone that can maybe slide into a safety role in the future. But, yeah, Arian Smith, Francis, I think it's Mayoga. Yeah. We'll have to go to Miami's site. We'll have to go to Miami's site. And then Tyler Barron, shots in the dark. Maybe they can develop something. But that receiver room with just Garrett Wilson might be looking a little thin, but hopefully Mason Taylor gets an opportunity, because I did just draft him in a dynasty league in the 3rd round. And so,
as you should.
And we'll talk some dynasty here in a couple episodes. But
yeah.
And then moving on to the Patriots, I'm not gonna lie, I could not give them an A+ and sound like a real homer. I gave them a solid A. This was one of the best classes I've seen as a Patriots fan. I think they stuck to the board and they finally did what your Ravens do and what the Eagles do, and they take players that are sliding, right? Will Campbell was the biggest need for them at pick 4. They were simple and took him. He's a culture guy. Yeah, there's questions about the arm length, but the dude literally stood on stage in tears and said, "I will fight and die to protect Drake May." Like, that should fire up all Patriots fans. Like, let's go. I'm not going to critique the player. I'm going to critique the position. I did not think that the Patriots would go running back in the 2nd round. There was a lot of rumors that they wanted to get a James White role pass catching back. So I was looking more, maybe in the 4th with like a Brashad Smith. I don't mind the Travion Henderson pick. He was both of our running back 3. He has home run potential, and he's one of the best pass blocking running backs in this draft. That gives you a little bit of pass catching ability too. So I think that he's eventually going to be the starting running back. I think it is telling they took him at pick 38, because usually running backs drafted in the early 2nd round are valued a ton. Like, he's going to be a very good starter in this league for a long time. And then getting into where I think the Patriots made their money is it's 4 of these next 5 picks. Kyle Williams at 69 was fantastic. You know me, I wanted Jaden Higgins. He didn't fall to 38. Kyle Williams at 69 with his yak and his separation ability is incredible. Jared Wilson, I would have taken him at 77. They traded down and got him at 95 to potentially be the left guard starter this year, but take over for Garrett Bradbury in 2 years once he's out of there at center. And then Joshua Farmer at D tackle and Braden Swinson are just guys that fell down the board, and the Patriots were like, hey, let's take them. And I love it. They took a developmental edge in Braden Swinson, which I thought they needed to take. They need a little more pass rush upside. And then Joshua Farmer's going to fit in next to Milton Williams and Christian Barmore very, very nicely right there. So Craig Woodson gives them potentially starter ability at the free safety spot. Andres Borgalis was the number 1 kicker, huge leg. Marcus Bryant, I almost wonder if that was a troll pick, because he had like 34 and 5/8 inch arms. So maybe they're like, let's just take the guy with the, but no, they needed obviously more offensive linemen on this roster. So they took another one that could maybe develop into something, 7th round pick. And then they take a long snapper, which is so Patriots like, but they did just cut their 9-year captain or veteran long snapper in Joe Cardona. So really solid class for the Patriots. So really like what a lot of them did. There wasn't what I felt were too many reaches. They let the board fall to them. They took some of their guys. I would say the only shocking one to me was Travion Henderson, and that's just because I didn't think they'd go running back. It wasn't because I didn't think he was good enough to go 38. It was because I thought that they wouldn't go there. I had Henderson at 40th on my big board, so he was right there where I had him ranked.
Yeah, man, I gave it an A too. I gave out 3 A's, no A pluses. And this is one of the 3 best draft classes. I can't really decide between 2 and 3. I did pick a number 1. This is not number 1, but unbelievable class for New England, man. I think home runs with their first 3 picks, right? Campbell, Henderson, Kyle Williams, and then Jared Wilson, the slide he had. I don't know if it's because he was a 1-year starter at center Georgia, but the guy is such a stud. I think he's the best, pure center. Everybody talked about that. And when we say pure center, we just mean somebody that actually played center, not sliding in from guard or tackle, like many others in this class. And then Braden Swinson, I was looking up on Twitter during the draft. I was like, did he like kill anybody? Because because 146 for Braden Swinson is insane value. You talked about Braden Swinson being a developmental tackle or edge rusher. I don't even know if he's that developmental. I really liked what I saw on tape. He was my 55th overall player, and they got him at 146. So listen, I think that was a home run for New England. And then I liked the Borregales pick. That guy was the number 1 and 2 kickers on my board landed in this show. We'll get to Tyler Loop later. But our teams did their homework on the special team side.
Yeah.
So we had a good laugh about the Patriots forcing the Ravens to take a kicker there, because once the first one went, if you like somebody else, you got to go get them right then and there.
Him. They started the run.
Unbelievable identity draft for Mike Vrabel. Listen, same GM. Maybe they don't really have a GM. But same, front office. Has Elliott Wolf assumed the title of GM now?
Pretty much. I mean, they call everything but the GM, but it's like assistant player personnel development, whatever it is. But it's GM. It's GM, because he said in press conferences too, it comes down to me and Vrabel. We're the decision makers. And so it's
this was an identity draft. Yeah. Like the Jets. The Jets did it with 3 players, but still an identity draft. The Patriots did it with a lot more than 3, man. They got an A from me. Couldn't be happier with the haul that they got. So heading to the north, should we start with Baltimore, as that is alphabetical order?
If you want to start with them, go ahead.
All right, let's do it, man. I gave the Ravens an A. That is one of my 3 A's, not my number 1 draft. But the Ravens, with their first 2 picks, got my 7th and 15th overall players. Malachi Starks, we kind of knew he was going to fall just because of positional value. But here the Ravens are again taking another safety that's fallen to positional value. That's an incredible talent. And then Mike Green. Listen, there's a bunch of the off the field concerns, which is probably why he slid. But the Ravens spent a day with Green, did their own investigation. There's no ongoing investigations for those 2 allegations. So if they felt comfortable taking Mike Green, I'm totally comfortable with it. And everybody that's like, oh, Justin Tucker's still on the team. Well, at pick 186, Tyler Loop was selected. So if that's an inkling to perhaps what is to come, take that as you will. But looking further down the board for the Ravens draft, I thought they hit on a lot of needs. Emory Jones earlier than I would have taken him, but he's a developmental tackle / guard, something they needed. Teddy Buchanan is somebody we didn't get to in our linebacker episode, but somebody that I had the chance to watch a little bit of, and guy plays with his hair on fire. Love the pick at 129. Get him next to Roquan Smith. I think that's going to be a moneymaker. And then Carson Vincent they took at 141. That's another developmental offensive lineman. But what I really wanted to get to here is that 6th round, where they took Aeneas Peebles and Robert Longerbeam, 2 players that I was kind of clamoring for. I was like, can we get somebody up front? Can we get somebody up front that can rush the passer from the inside? Aeneas Peebles has that in his DNA, man. That's all this guy does. Sure, he's an outlier measurably, but he did it. He made it work at the ACC level from Virginia Tech. He's a stud. And then Robert Longerbeam, if you go back to our corner episode, or I think my guys, maybe I know something else, but we shouted him out across a bunch of different episodes. I just really love the guy, the way this guy plays like a Raven. So I was a huge fan of what the Ravens did in this draft. But this grade is very much so carried by the first 2 picks, because these are 2 players that I kind of thought they'd have to decide between at 27, and they got them at 27 and 59. So that was awesome.
I mean, they got my 8th and 13th best players. So like I talked about with the Patriots, like the Ravens and the Eagles, and there's a couple other teams that are just really good at getting the elite guys that fall. This is my only A+ of the class. Is this who you thought it was?
No, this is not who I thought it was. Okay.
This is my only A+. We need to get my 8th and 13th best players there again. And then they take Aeneas Peebles and Robert Longerbeam, who I didn't have in my top 100. Actually, I think I had Peebles in my top 100. Yeah, I had him at 96. But you get those guys in the 6th round, just because they're a little bit undersized and maybe don't fit the NFL body type. It's a great draft. Like you got 2, I don't want to say instant starters, because that's what they are, but you got immediate impact guys. Like those guys they're not just going to start. Malachi Starks and Mike Green are going to make immediate impacts, and you guys could be a contender in the AFC this year. And those guys are going to be in the mix of it.
Jace. Could be.
I'm just saying, wait, just wait. I'm just kidding. But no, I mean,
there's a monster lurking in the AFC.
So, I mean, it's hard to ignore what they did at the top two right there. And I think that they filled a lot of other spots that they needed. I mean, they had a ton of picks, and so they are able to fill, like you said, kicker. They got a LeJohntay Wester, who out of Colorado, who might not, be anything, but he had a good college career, has some
return
speed.
Kicks.
Yeah, gives you return value. Hit on a couple offensive linemen that could potentially be rotational guys or develop into something. We know that the Ravens are really good at developing at any position there. And then, like we said, Aeneas Peebles, Robert Longerbeam, who are going to immediately be rotational players. They probably were just 6th-round picks in the NFL because the size and the measurables, but those are really good football players that were really productive in college. So this was my 1A plus in the class.
Love it. So
it goes to Cincinnati now.
Cincinnati, yeah.
Okay, the Bengals for me got a C plus. Now, this one is going to be hard too because they just didn't have a lot of picks. Shamar Stewart is obviously a freak show on the edge, and a guy that's going to have the potential to be a stud in the NFL. It's what's his production going to be? Is in Cincinnati, is he going to be able to not replicate, but overachieve and have more than 4 sacks in 2 seasons? Because that's what the Bengals need. Now they do need interior defensive line and edge help, so he can kind of fit in both of that mold there with his measurable size and stuff. Demetrius Knight, I know that you liked him. I don't know if I liked him at 49, getting a linebacker there. Dylan Fairchild was a pretty good fit for them at guard, letting him fit. Barrett Carter taking another linebacker. Didn't really love that second pick there. And then Jalen Rivers is a huge offensive tackle that could potentially develop into something. And Taj Brooks, I actually like Taj Brooks, one of the better picks there. I thought he was very productive in college. Wasn't super explosive and stuff. You said, Devin Neal Light or something? Kind of like boring tape, but super productive at Texas Tech for a couple of years, and maybe could crack in and be a different type of back to a Chase Brown in that offense. So I actually liked the Taj Brooks in the 6th-round picks. Thought it was pretty good value for them there. But with the lack of picks, and we both talked about the Shamar Stewart, even though I had him ranked about in that range. We talked about the concerns with, can he actually produce at the NFL level and not just be, hey, this guy has all the potential in the world and all the measurables athletically, the size, the length, and stuff like that. Can he actually produce for an NFL team? So that would be the question for me there.
I gave it a C plus as well, Jace. Shamar Stewart, that's what this class is going to be remembered by. I'd like the Demetrius Knight pick. I think it's a good fit. They doubled up at linebacker with a player in Barrett Carter that I didn't really love. That was interesting to me. Dylan Fairchild felt a little bit like an overdraft, to be honest. I didn't think his tape was that impressive. The wrestling background comes into play sometimes, and he just mauls people, but it doesn't happen that consistently. So maybe they can get the best out of him. Certainly looks like a better pick than it is if you just look at the college he came from and you're like, oh, starting Georgia guard. That should work.
Boy, am I glad that they took that Georgia player and not the Georgia player the Patriots got about 10 picks later.
I mean, Jared Wilson instead would make this class look a lot better. And then Taj Brooks was the only positive value pick in relation to my big board. And they barely got positive value on Taj Brooks. Just because, like you talked about, this guy's going to be an RB2. I don't ever think he can be an RB1, but you get him in the right fit to be an RB2, and maybe he can make that work for you. I just didn't feel like the Bengals really got better in this draft. They filled some needs on the defensive side of the ball, but there's really only 2 players in this class that I really see having an impact this year and perhaps in following years, and those are Shamar Stewart and Demetrius Knight. After that, not so sure. So the lack of, any steals where you're like, wow, what a pick down the board. They didn't really have that. The lack of picks comes into play, but there were other teams that did it better with a lack of picks. So that's why this is a C plus for me. Rolling into another team in the state of Ohio, the Cleveland Browns made a lot of noise at the top of this draft. They got a haul to move off of, number 2. I gave them an A minus because they did get a ton of picks in return for the Travis Hunter trade. Here's the issue. They could draft as many good players as they want this year. They better pray The 2025 Cleveland Browns draft is not known as the year that a team passed up on Travis Hunter, because that's very, very possible. But I will focus for now on the players that they did draft. Mason Graham, top 3 defensive player in this draft. I was shocked that Schwess was the first player taken in the second round, but I digress. Good player. He'll probably find a way into the rotation and perhaps be a long-term starter after that. Like the Judkins pick, Harold Fannin was a little bit early for me. I'm not the biggest fan of him. And then we'll talk about the whole quarterback thing. Dylan Gabriel they got, and I think I actually would be willing to bet they were higher on Dylan Gabriel because they took him first. So we'll see how that goes. Dylan Sampson, I think, is going to be the RB2. I think that Jerome Ford's going to get forced right out of here, and it'll be a Judkins Sampson backfield, which is insane. And then they get the biggest steal in their draft class in Shedeur Sanders, who I think could compete for the QB1 role right away. It's just a matter of how that dynamic works with him being a 5th-round pick, if that comes into play at all. I don't know, because there might be another 5th-round pick in this division that also starts. So we'll see. Maybe not right out of the gates, but it's going to be a 5-man QB battle. 1 or 2 guys are going to get cut. But class led by Mason Graham. They still find Shedeur Sanders in the 5th. They get 2 very good running backs. Whole lot of offense, but defense at the top. I think this is a step in the right direction for Cleveland. They just got to watch Travis Hunter play for another team.
I'm not as high on it as some people. I gave this one a C+.
Wow. All right.
They got a haul. And right.
Yeah.
They clearly said that they are trying to get a quarterback in the 2026 draft class. You better hope that they do it. They have the potential to have 2 top 5 picks, based off of the Jaguars and them, what their record is.
They could pick 1 and 2.
They could. They easily could. But I have a hard time passing on the generational talent. Like, when he's there, he's there. And they needed cornerback. They needed receiver. I'm not hating on Mason Graham, but you had a legit chance to take Travis Hunter, a generational talent. I have a hard time passing on that, even though they got what they got. I love Carson Schlesinger. He was 45 on my big board. He was my guy, but I didn't see the need to take him at 33. I thought that was a little bit of a reach. Judkins, really great pick there. Obviously going to be running back 1. Agree with you on Harold Fannin. I like Dylan Gabriel, but Dylan Gabriel makes 0 sense to me when they turn around and take Shedeur, and I don't think they were planning on taking Shedeur. I think that was
someone walked into the office.
But that's why I give it a C+, is they took 2 quarterbacks that you could have gotten someone else there at 94. Like, if someone was going to make the call, they should have told him to take him at 94, and then they could have taken someone else or whatever.
Or 33 or 36.
I don't like it. I think that their best picks, in my opinion, are Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson. That automatically creates a dynamic backfield that has explosiveness. They can both catch the ball in the backfield. But yeah, even as much as I love Schlesinger, and I think he's going to be a great player in the NFL, thought it was crazy he was the first pick of the second or of day 2.
Yeah.
They traded out of the option to get generational talent, and Mason Graham is obviously a great player. He was both in our top 5 for our big boards, so we're not hating on him, but like you said, you're going to have to look at, hey, Travis Hunter, we had a chance at him. Let's see what he does. And then, the 2 quarterbacks, one was a head scratcher to me within 50 picks, but we'll see how it turns out. Shedeur could definitely start for them. He could not. We don't know. Was the Browns not a team that he told, like, don't draft me? What, am I tripping there?
I don't know. It was like, there was a rumor that I think Dion referenced and said, I'm not letting my kids, meaning his 3 kids in this draft, Shedeur, Travis, and Shiloh, play for the Browns, but we'll see, man. I just think he slid. We'll do like 30, 45 seconds each on why he slid to 144. I think he was in a 6 to 4 team draft, and there were other teams just picking in between. He limited his draft pool so much in the pre-draft process and selectively on his side, nothing to do with the NFL teams. He just, was clearly never going to be an option for a team to take as a QB2. That was pretty clearly not quote unquote allowed, which is so weird. And so when you do that, and then you find out that the Titans like another guy better, and the Giants like another guy better, and the Saints like another guy better, then you're just like waiting for Pittsburgh and Cleveland to take you. And one of them did. And Pittsburgh, I think, liked somebody else better too. So we're going to get to that in a second. But
well, one, I don't think he was a first round talent. Me and you had both said that. I thought
I had
there
a
was a
third
way
round grade on him.
there was a way I thought he got into the first round just because, you know, the name and the season he did kind of have, but I didn't think he was a first round talent. But I think it's his attitude. You know, he throws that huge party after the draft and stuff. It's all about him. I feel like teams got the sense of that in their pre-draft meetings, and they're like, hey, if this guy does come in and if we draft him not to be the starter, what's his outlet going to be? He's not a culture guy.
No.
Shedeur Sanders is not a culture guy. He's a culture guy when he's with his dad at Colorado and his dad's running the ship, but that's not a Mike Tomlin guy. Mike Tomlin's not going to put up with that shit in Pittsburgh. So even when it came down to those two teams, Pittsburgh was probably like, oh, heck no. So I think that it came down to the culture of the pre-draft meetings. And quite frankly, as big of a steal as it was, because I don't think he was a fifth round quarterback, I also don't think he was a first or maybe even an early second, even though I thought he would go in that range. I didn't see him falling this far. I kind of am glad that NFL teams stood on business because they said, hey, we're not going to draft you just because of who you are and what the media wants us to do. We're going to take you where we see you fit. And maybe the slide would have been further if they didn't get someone come in and say, we're taking him right here. So that would have been interesting to see. But moving on to the Steelers, last team in the AFC North, I gave the Steelers a B+. I was high on Harbin. I thought that they got him at a good range. They got him at 21. I had him at 23 on my big board. Going to be a great fit for them. Caleb Johnson has an opportunity or probably will be the starting running back. Jack Sawyer is a immediate impact guy for them, and it's just a culture fit for the Steelers. You talk about a guy that plays hard, does everything right, is going to be a leader in the locker room. That's a Mike Tomlin type guy too there. And then you've hit on it, Will Howard. I like Will Howard in the 6-4, man. They need a quarterback. At least he's going to be a developmental second-round guy if he's sitting behind someone for a year. But he just won a national championship. He started a lot of games in college football. He has a chance to be an early starter for them in year one. So I don't mind that pick for them either. I think that was a good shot in the dark, and they're saying, hey, this guy's better, you know, maybe I don't want to say smarter, but he's better interview wise, better leader, stuff like that than Shedeur. Okay, maybe not the talent, but he's bigger. He's got a bigger arm than him. Let's take a chance on him and see if we can develop him.
Well, we got to watch a couple Will Howard interviews, whether it's the leak from the end leak. No, it's just a release from inside the NFL. He did a combine interview. I think that's what it was. That dude crushed it. Yeah. And then the Gruden man, Will Howard, man. Gruden loves that guy. The Steelers, I gave them a B. And I think it's the difference, honestly, the plus. I'm just going to say it is the difference between me and you on Derek Harmon.
Yeah.
I like Derek Harmon. You love Derek Harmon. There's the difference where I'm like B, very solid. Because I don't think they got like, you know, there's a couple teams that got like a superstar talent. And, you know, there were teams before and after Pittsburgh in the first round that were able to land that. But Pittsburgh, for not having a second round pick, they got Derek Harmon and they got Caleb Johnson, Caleb Johnson, you could tell me that was the second round pick. I really like Caleb Johnson, and this fit is awesome for him. I think he's going to excel.
Yeah.
I'm not happy that the Ravens are going to have to play this guy twice a year. I really like Caleb Johnson. Questions about Jack Sawyer? They got the perfect value for him. Really comfortable in round 4. And then Black, sure. Will Howard, though, is the day 3 standout. I think maybe I'm a little bit, I have the B because like day 3 is only Will Howard for me. Well, actually, excuse me, Will Howard and Jack Sawyer. But I think Will Howard could end up being the starting quarterback for this team. What that guy did in the college football playoff when the lights shone the brightest was really impressive. He's not going to have, you know, Jeremiah Smith and all those guys running around against college level DBs, but he is going to have George Pickens and DK Metcalf. Well, if they keep George Pickens, that's a whole, you know, annual.
He might be on his way to Dallas right now.
Annual George Pickens drama, but he might have George Pickens. He will have DK Metcalf. I think the Steelers liked Will Howard better than Shedeur Sanders. I think that's why they didn't take him. I think they were comfortable waiting on this guy.
Yeah.
And I think they might get some good ROI here. B for the Steelers. Really good draft. They continue to just extend the longevity of them being good. This draft continued to do that. Let's slide over to the AFC South. We'll start with the Houston Texans, who traded out of the first round for your boy, Jaden Higgins. The Texans, I gave them a B-. I think, you know, this was a good draft, solid draft. I knock it a little bit because I think they could have gotten more from their trade with the Giants. I think they probably rolled their eyes when the Rams and who traded out with the Rams? The Rams and Falcons trade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When
the
they got
Rams
a future first.
Yeah, when the Rams got a future first, the Texans were probably like, no way. That's insane. But they draft Jaden Higgins. They drafted Ariante Ursery, who I don't love, but they needed it. They double dip at receiver with Jaden Higgins' teammate, Jalen Noel, which tells you unfortunate news about Tank Dell. Means they don't know if he's playing ever again. That's what that tells me. I thought Jalen Smith was a huge reach at corner in the third. Woody Marks, they moved up considerably to go get him in the fourth. That's what they need in this running back room to complement Joe Mixon. Big fan of that pick. Jalen Reed, solid pick in the sixth. Graham Mertz, shocked he was drafted. But listen, I think it's a decent shot in the dark in this class. A little bit forgotten about. People were talking about him highly coming into the year. Similar to kind of what the Ravens did with Emory Jones, a guy that doesn't live up to the hype in his draft season. Just go take a swing. And they could afford to take a swing on a Graham Mertz. Luke Lachey in the seventh. Loved that one. So the Texans, kind of the haul is kind of a B. And then I tack on the minus because I think that they could have gotten more out of the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the Giants going up for a quarterback, you could have tried to squeeze a little bit more out of them.
You know why they're coming up, too.
Yeah.
Like the Rams were probably like, Atlanta quarterback again?
What? Yeah. You could have maybe squeezed a little bit more out of them, made them pay quarterback tax, but I mean, they get a second, a third in 2025 and a 2020. What was it? A third or they get a 2026 third for them. So, future assets too. The two Iowa State wide receivers is fun, man. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel are going to be really exciting. I like Ursery. I do think it was a little bit overdrafted, but they needed tackle help, and he was the best one available at that point.
By far, by the way.
Yeah, they came off all in the first round, like late first, which is what we thought could happen. And there's usually tackle needy teams there when Josh Connerly, Josh Simmons, guys like that went off. So they needed it there. Woody Marks, a pass catching running back, is going to be really fun. Jalen Reed is also a really good safety who could produce. He's pretty physical and has really good ball production. Him and Kevin Winston were really fun to watch in that defense. So for me, what makes this draft is Higgins and Noel. I think those are two really good receivers, and they got them together. So now you have a receiver core of Higgins, Nico Collins, and Jalen Noel. And then if Tank Dell ever comes back and gets healthy, it's going to be a pretty fun receiver core there. But man, those, Higgins and Nico Collins next to each other for CJ Stroud are two big targets that can do a lot of different things in the short to intermediate game and potentially down the field. And then Jalen Noel gives you that slot who has game-breaking speed that can just take the top off a defense at any time. So they needed a receiver. You were like, hey, are they going to stick in the first round and take like Luther Burden? If Emeka Buka was there, it would have been interesting to see. But they trade down and they still get two super productive receivers that can make a long impact for CJ Stroud.
Two questions for you. One, What'd you give it? Because if you said it, I missed it.
Oh, B minus.
B minus. Okay, so
I definitely did not say that. I definitely did not say that.
And then two, do you think that they traded out of the first round thinking Josh Connerly was going to be there at 34?
Oh, I was a little shocked that Connerly went to the Commanders. So I was
higher on Connerly than Simmons, but when Connerly actually went in the first round, I was like, whoa. But so I wondered if Houston was like, nah, let's get some value. But Higgins fine, Ursery is totally fine to end up with right there.
I mean, Ursery ended at, I'm trying to think. I should have organized my board better.
He was 59 for me, so it's 11 picks, which is nothing. 11 picks does not matter.
He was 36 for me, so
there you go.
He was in the right range. Length, size, things like that you just can't teach, and so a little bit of developmental guy though for sure. But should be the Colts next.
Yep, the fastest pick is in that we saw on day one.
Did you see the video of them two celebrating the Dolphins?
Oh my God, when Kenneth Grant came in, I hope that doesn't end up like a meme if Kenneth Grant becomes the best player ever
in this class. So the Colts, I gave them a B. I thought it was a really solid class. We said that Tyler Warren was a fit for them for the longest time. Like it made way more sense than a Colston Loveland.
Too much sense.
It happened to be there, right? He's going to be great in the run blocking game. He's going to be able to give you something in the pass game. If Anthony Richardson can hit water standing off of a dock, I don't know if he can do that, but we'll see. JTT gives you that pass rush upside, who is also a very solid player. You know where my favorite pick of this class is. It's DJ
Our
Giddens,
favorite pick,
man.
yeah.
Yeah. The 5th round, DJ Giddens, a guy that could immediately be the number 2 to JT, who's obviously had injury concerns the last couple of years, and running behind this offensive line and Tyler Warren. Man, I love the fit for there. Now, could he have gone somewhere that maybe had more opportunity? For sure. I think we would have both liked to see that, but I think he's going to be a great compliment to Jonathan Taylor. I just didn't love like the Jalen Travis, the Justin Wiley, Riley Leonard's fine. Obviously another guy that was in the national championship, and there's a little bit of concerns there with Anthony Richardson, but I don't like him as much as I like Will Howard getting taken in the 6th. So can't really give that one there. And then Tim Smith, good, solid defensive tackle. But what really gives it a B for me is Tyler Warren's the fit we wanted. DJ Giddens is a guy that we loved, and they got him in the 5th, and he's going to be a great compliment to Jonathan Taylor.
Listen, I think we see it pretty similarly. I gave it a B-. For me, it's kind of like a 3-man class with Warren, JTT, and Giddens. And then there's a lot of swings the rest of the way. The Justin Wally pick in the 3rd round was shocking to me. But that's what draft grades are, man. This is our initial impression. He could be a Pro Bowler, and this doesn't matter. It's just fun to go back and reflect on it. But yeah, I was really like those 3 picks for Indy, not much of the other stuff. And then Jacksonville, another B- from me in the AFC South. There's a lot of ways that you could look at this. You could say they went up and got Travis Hunter automatic A. I've seen that before. I think they gave up a monstrous haul, but they went and got Travis Hunter. That's how this class is going to be remembered. Nobody else that we talk about matters in terms of how this class will be remembered. It is all on Travis Hunter. Caleb Bransaw I thought was a little early for my liking, but I liked what they did with Wyatt Milam right after. Loved the fit with Bashal Tutin, Jack Kaiser, Jonah Monheim in the 7th, and LaQuinn Allen in the 7th. 2 very good picks. Taking 2 running backs likely means that Etienne or Bigsby's on the way out, which both are overdue. But just when you give up that much, I ding it a little bit. But hey, it was for Travis Hunter, so it's a B-, but a very volatile B-. That could become a much better grade if Travis Hunter lives up to what we think he will.
Yeah, I wasn't the guy that's like automatic A, but I gave it an A- because I think they were aggressive. They noticed the generational talent. They have who they view as their quarterback of the future. I don't know if I view Trevor Lawrence as their long-term, but they've paid him like it. He was drafted the number 1 pick. They're going to ride it out with him. And Brian Thomas Jr. turned out to be a stud last year. So they're like, hey, let's give up our 2026 first. Let's go get him. He can play both offense and defense. Caleb Bransaw is super fast and physical. Wyatt Milam's going to be a guard. I love Bashal too, and I had him at RB10 on my board, and he ended up at 99 on my top 100. So right in that range, home run hitter speed. I really like that there. LaQuinn Allen, who you're a big fan of there. Jack Kaiser gives them a linebacker who's played a lot of college football, who can be a solid guy there because they did just decline Devin Lloyd's 5th-year option. But for me, I get the aggressiveness and going up and getting Travis Hunter, and it might bite them in the butt. I don't think it will. But I really like that they were saying, hey, we're going to bet on this guy because we haven't seen one in college yet. We're going to give it up. We're going to try to make this team maybe even a wild card contender here in the AFC South, and we'll see how it goes. So I love them being aggressive and going up for it and then filling it out with some other quality starters there, Wyatt Milam, Caleb Bransaw, Bashal Tutin, Jack Kaiser, guys like that will be contributors in the long run.
How about James Gladstone, man? That guy's he knows how to give a press conference intro.
He does. He does. Yep. So, and then the Titans, I gave the Titans an A-. I like this, and I might be a little higher on it than you. One, they got the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. They needed a quarterback. The Will Levis experiment had not worked out. They needed one. They get the best one in this class at 1. I love Femi Oladejo at 52. He was another my guy. I had him sitting exactly at 59. So goes a little bit earlier. Kevin Winston, who we said would be a 2nd round still, is a 3rd round still for them. I thought it was a little bit of a reach for I don't even know how to say his name. The
Shamir
DK. Thought that was a reach there, but they kind of honestly make it a little better by getting Alec Aomanor in the 4th.
If you switch those, it looks awesome.
100%.
Although DK is 106 on my board, so I was like, I love it, but
So, for me, if you flip that, I think it's a little bit easier, but you're just looking at the players. And then Gunnar Helm. I loved Gunnar Helm. I thought with the ball in his hands, he can give you something as a good pass catching receiver, has a little bit more to grow into his body. But I was a big fan of Gunnar Helm too. I believe he was my guy on our final top 100 or top 50 big board and stuff. So I really like, of those 6 picks, I like 5 of them. Cam Ward, Femi Oladejo, Winston, Gunnar Helm, Alec Ailmanor. I think that's a really good haul for them. And so I gave them an A-. I really like the Titans draft.
I gave it an A- too. I think it's borderline A+ if they take Mike Green at 52. Obviously, there's varying comfort level for different teams there. But yeah, Cam Ward, they got my QB1. They got a really good developmental edge rusher in Femi Oladejo. Kevin Winston in the 3rd round is nuts.
Stupid.
I like the Chimere DK pick. I think he can complement Calvin Ridley pretty nicely. So can Alec Ailmanor. So can Xavier Restrepo, who they got after the draft. Who I actually
get out of here with your Xavier Restrepo propaganda.
I think he could start for this team. Gunnar Helm.
Maybe if they're playing against 12-year-olds that run like 5-minute 100-meter dashes.
Stop that. Jackson Slater in the 5th, I really liked as a developmental player. Could be a guard, could be a center. And then Khalil Mullings in the 6th is exactly what they don't have in this running back room, an aggressor with the rock in his hand. So I really like this draft for Tennessee. Mike Borgonzi did a great job kind of building the identity of this team, setting them off in the right direction. Just a lot of physical football players right here. I guess minus Gunnar Helm, who could learn how to be physical. He's got the frame to do it, though. Everything is there. It's just got to be harnessed. But really good draft for Tennessee. I thought the best in their division by a long shot. So we'll move over to our final division here, the AFC West. We'll start in the Mile High City with the Denver Broncos. I gave them a B. I was pleasantly surprised that they took Jahdae Barron in the 1st round over a running back. But good pick. I really like Jahdae Barron. Perfect complement to Patrick Surtain. And because of his landing spot, I think he'll be used in the way that I thought he should have been, as kind of an inside player who can extend and give you outside snaps. And then you'll be able to use him as a blitzer, all that sort of stuff. You can have some fun with Jahdae Barron. So I loved that pick. RJ Harvey has quickly become a fantasy darling. This was a little bit higher than where I was on him, but I know you loved RJ Harvey. Listen, the tape is really fun. I just have questions about an older running back, but who's, he's an older player. There were some guys I like better on the board, but RJ Harvey lands in a fine landing spot in Denver. And then Pat Bryant, way earlier than I thought he would go, but this is totally a Sean Payton type of guy. One of those players in this class where I came away watching him and was like, why is no one talking about Pat Bryant? I talked about it to you before we did our receiver episode. I was like, did you watch Pat Bryant? Like he's kind of good. So they take him at 74, and then they get a bunch of other contributors throughout this draft. Shout out Jeremy Crenshaw, Aussie punter right there in the 6th. But very solid draft for Denver. Thought it was a B. They didn't get any like considerable steals or anything, but they drafted a lot of good football players.
No, I mean, Jahdae Barron, not the position. I thought it was Amari Hampton. I really did, because we had heard that they were trying to trade up.
I wonder if Tampa Bay stole their pick.
Ibuka?
Yeah.
I could see it. I really thought they were going to go Hampton no matter what, that he was there. I mean, they were going to go up for a running back. They didn't go up. They were like, okay, well, he falls to 20. I thought that was a pick. They take probably the best player that was available at that point. I guess Mike Green and some of those guys had fallen there, but it makes sense for them. He's going to play slot corner. He's going to be really good for them wherever he is, opposite of Pat Surtain, one of the best secondaries in the NFL instantly. RJ Harvey, I had an 86 on my big board, so even 60th overall going was higher. But, man, he has fun tape. He's explosive. He's been 3 years of really good football at UCF and really good stats and tape. So I love him. That's their replacement there. Pat Bryant, I like the player, but I thought that was a little high for him. And I'm like, hey, how similar to like a Cortland Sutton and a Devon Vele is a Pat Bryant? Maybe he's better. Maybe he starts over him, but I felt like they have that receiver type in the room. And then Savion Jones was great value there at 101. I gave the Broncos
he wrecked the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he Savion.
Did. A B also?
I gave him a B+.
Yeah. Okay.
B+, because, I mean, I'm a little higher on Harvey than you were, so I like that pick, even though it's
Hey, he
higher
was
than me.
91 on my board,
There
86
you
for
go.
you.
Yeah, we're close. We're close,
Yeah.
actually. So, but no, I like that. Quay Robinson too. Jeremy Crawshaw. Caleb Lohner is an interesting one at tight end too.
Yeah,
Six
that's
foot
a fun
seven,
pick.
6'7", guy that played basketball. Started at BYU, went to Baylor, came to Utah as a basketball football player. I think that Sean Payton can do some crazy things with him. Red zone target, big bodied there, but they also do kind of have some bigger tight ends. So we'll see how that one works out. But next, who I guess it's going to go to the Chiefs, Kansas City.
Yeah.
I gave the Chiefs a B. I think that they got a really good player in Simmons, right? And he falls probably because of his not medicals, but because of the injury. I think that's a really good pick for them there. I'm a little bit lower on Omar Norman Lott. I know both of us are. He's right at 100 in my top 100 big board. So a little bit overdrafted there. Ashton Gelati, Noel Williams, I think were good values there. I love Jalen Royals in the fourth. Going to be a great compliment, especially with some of the legal issues some of the other receivers are dealing with. And Rashee Rice coming off injury. I think he's going to have an opportunity to be on the field really early in his career. Jeffrey Bossa, good fifth round backer for them. That has length and some ability to cover sideline to sideline. And then Brashad Smith just fit next to Kyle Moyanga, or not Kyle Moyanga, Isaiah Pacheco. I literally just molded them into the same person. I know. They freaking putting him next to him, or putting those two next to each other, two totally different backs. Brashad Smith with a little bit of a receiver background when he was at Miami, but that's going to be fun. Andy Reid can do some cool things with Brashad Smith, not even out of the backfield, lining him up as a receiver, doing some fly sweeps with him, stuff like that. So maybe more of a gadget guy for them, but nonetheless, he'll give them a pass catching option too.
This was a B+ for me. I like the Josh Simmons pick. I like the fit with Omar Norman Lott. I think that was one of the best fits he could have gone to. So I don't mind this pick. Round 3, a lot of people like what they did with Ashton Gelati and Noel Williams. I'm lower on both of those guys, so that's kind of what puts this into the B range. Still a high B for me, because after those two picks, they stole Jalen Royals. No idea why he was a pick in the 4th round. Jeffrey Bossa, another guy that I was like back and forth on, but I liked the fit a lot. And then Brashad Smith, another guy that I like the fit, and 228 is tremendous value for this guy. Not a natural running back right now, but the Chiefs have been longing for a type of running back like this that they can use in that kind of Jerick McKinnon role that they, made work so well. So Brashad Smith, really good pick in the 7th round there. Could be a, little fantasy long shot that people should be looking at. But Josh Simmons at the top, this is a perfect spot. They have 5 offensive linemen that I think could start. And Josh Simmons will be able to develop, rehab, take his time, and then be inserted into the starting rotation at the offensive line. So B+ for me for Kansas City. Like what they did. Not as much as perhaps another team in their division, the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'll intro this one. I talked to you about having 3 A's and knowing which one was the best. Here we are, the Raiders. I gave them an A. I think this was the best haul of anybody in the NFL draft. I thought John Spytek and Pete Carroll came in with a purpose. They decided we're going to set an identity, and that's exactly what they did. Ashton Genty in the 1st. Absolutely love that pick. Jack Bash, super high on that player. He is an instant starter at wide receiver for them. They got him at 58. Darian Porter in the 3rd round is a steal. Really like that player. Developmental physical corner, great size, special teams ability at 68 is a steal. At 98 and 99, they got developmental guard, developmental tackle, and Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant. Both of those guys I think could start by the end of the year. I'm much higher on Grant than Rogers, but I like both of those picks. Deontay Thornton's kind of what they need, somebody to stretch the field at wide receiver. So I don't love the player, but I think when you insert him into this type of offense, that can be an amazing fit. I like Tonka Hemingway. I did not think he was going to go 135, but that's a pass rusher from the interior paired with a JJ Pegues at 180 who can play some fullback, can stop the run for you. And then they go on an FCS tear with Tommy Mellott and Cam Miller, just the 2 guys that finished for the FCS Player of the Year award, 1 and 2, played in the national championship. One is a receiver now, Tommy Mellott, so we'll see if he can crack the 53. And then Cam Miller might be the QB2 here. And then they stole Cody Lindenberg in the 7th round. Those were all their picks, guys. I loved them all. The Raiders, maybe Caleb Rogers, a little bit of an overdraft. Same with Thornton, maybe Hemingway a little bit. That's what separates this from an A+, but I thought they absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, I gave this one an A- for the Raiders. They got one of 3 blue chip prospects in this class with Ashton Jeanty. I think it's interesting that both the Patriots and the Raiders, who have Mike Vrabel and Pete Carroll, have one of the better drafts all of a sudden when they maybe have not been the best at drafting. And it's because they come in and they take identity players. Like you mentioned, Jack Besh is going to be great for them. He immediately could be their number 2 option with Devontae Adams gone. Now you have Jacoby Myers, Jack Besh. Genty's that offense is gonna run through Genty, obviously.
Brock
Porter,
Bowers.
we were all super high. Oh yeah, Brock Bowers. He's not very good, but no. This sidetracked. Someone just traded Brock Bowers in our dynasty league, and I'm just like, why are we trading Brock Bowers 1 year into his career? That might be the bet. I'm in a league right now, bro, that I'm not joking. There's probably at least 2 trades a day. It's crazy. They want to trade so much. They're already trading 2028 draft picks because they just got in our inventory. I'm like, and someone offered me like a 2028 pick and a 2027 pick for Jamar Chase. And I'm like, yeah, I'm probably going to trade away Jamar Chase, who's going to be the best dynasty asset
league
for the
might
next
even
4
not
years.
Be going then.
I'm like, holy crap. Anyway, sorry, that was my little rant. But yeah, someone just traded away Brock Bowers in my dynasty league. I was a little shocked. I'm like, you've had him for 1 year and he did that, and you're going to trade him. Anyways, silly. But love Darian Porter, their developmental guy that has all the athleticism, kind of a freak athlete. Also, I'm a little bit lower on the Rodgers and Grant pick. I like Grant more, like you mentioned, but they need an offensive line. And I think that taking developmental guys here is a little concerning. That's why I have it at an A- and not an A. Really good haul, though. Deontay Thornton in the 4th is great. He has field stretching speed. Tonka Hemington and Pegues is really good there. And then, you know me, loving my FCS guys. I love Tommy Malott. That dude, never beat him when we were playing him in the Big Sky. He is hard to defend at a quarterback spot. I can't even imagine him at receiver when he can maybe get a little bit better on his routes. I've never seen him play receiver, but that he's not a quarterback in the NFL. If anything, he's a gadget player that could maybe play like a Taysom Hill role. He's just not as big and strong as, he's not as big and strong as Taysom Hill. So that would be my concern there. But man, yeah, you look at this haul, they had a lot of picks. They hit on a lot of needs. I think the only concern for me is they didn't find, in my opinion, right now, a starting caliber offensive lineman, which they could have used. But they got a lot of other needs. And when they get one of 3 blue chip players for both of us at pick 6, that's a really good haul for them.
Yeah, and maybe I would have loaded a little bit with the offensive line note right there. But I just think if I'm like, would have wanted a starter, but then I look at their previous picks and I'm like, Darian Porter, Jack Besh, Ashton Jeanty. Take one of those guys out. I don't know how I feel about this class.
Exactly.
So, like if Jack Besh is Ozzie Trapillo there, that's not an A for me. But here we are. So the final pick in the AFC, the LA Chargers. That'll be the final final team for this episode, and then we'll do the NFC. I give the Chargers a very solid B. I liked what they did, bringing in a lot of offensive weapons. Amarian Hampton's going to lead the way in a suddenly crowded running back room. We'll see how that works out. Maybe buyer beware in Dynasty with Najee Harris, and they brought back J.K. Dobbins, signed my guy, Rocket Sanders, if he makes the team. We'll see. Trey Harris in the 2nd, little overdraft for me, but I think that maybe they'll be able to bring the best out of him. Jamari Caldwell, super fun player. Did not expect him to go at 86, but I'm glad somebody was really high on him. Love Kyle Kennard going there at 125. I think this is a perfect fit. You get a designated pass rusher there. And the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. So maybe they get a little more out of Kennard than I think they'll get, but I think as it comes to as a pass rusher standpoint, great player, and you get that at 125, that's great. Keandre Lambert-Smith, Aronde Gadsden, Branson Taylor, RJ Mickens, stud. How'd they get him at 214? No clue.
Yeah.
And then Trickways Bridges. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but that's how this class rounds out. So a solid start. They find a steal in RJ Mickens. A couple questions along the way with like, what are you doing with Trey Harris, Jamari Caldwell? We'll see. B, with a lot of room to get better for the Chargers. A lot of room to get worse, though, if, those guys at the top don't develop.
Yeah, I had this one at a B+. I think they were maybe in the consideration for an interior defensive lineman at 22, but all of them were gone. All four of the top guys were gone there. So they go Amari Hampton, which I think is a great fit. You talk about the style of offense and the type of team that Harbaugh's trying to build there. That is Amari Hampton. Tough, physical, downhill runner. They took Joe Alt last year. They are going to be a force to be reckoned with that run game. Trey Harris, we have our concerns there because of the ability to run the full route tree, but I think that fit next to Ladd McConkey and potentially being the Quentin Johnson replacement is a really good fit there for him, and he has a chance to grow with those guys, fit in that offense really well. Like you said, Jamry Caldwell and Kyle Kennard are really good front seven guys for them. They needed those players there. Kyle Kennard, SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Well, did he led the SEC in sacks, if I'm not mistaken, right? I don't have that in front of me, but I'm pretty sure. So, you get a guy that's played at the highest level who's done it. And then you get your interior defensive lineman there in the third who, he's not Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, but he's another very solid player there. And there was 27 something interior defensive linemen taken in this year's class. It was crazy.
5 in the first, man.
Yeah, crazy. So I gave this class a B+. I think this is a really solid class. Martin Hampton at the top kind of carries it there because Trey Harris, although I have him at 48 on my big board, a little bit of a concern there. And I would have been more concerned if he has to go in and be like a number one guy, like if someone's taking him to be like, hey, this is our number one guy. But next to Ladd McConkey, a true route runner, a guy that's going to be able to do a lot of different things, I think the fit for Trey Harris is really good there. Maybe another guy shooting up fantasy draft boards because of there. So I've seen them drafted kind of above some people that I personally wouldn't take him over, but I've seen some people maybe jump on him a little high. So we'll see. But no, I like this class too.
Yeah, listen, I think the AFC overall did a really good job drafting. I don't think I had anything lower than a C+ in the AFC. I gave Cincinnati and Buffalo C+. Stick around for the NFC episode. There will be a little bit lower than that we'll get to. We weren't afraid. We don't know who yet. We both gave out a D+. We sent each other our grades, but not the team. So we get on 1, maybe 2 NFC teams. So make sure you tuned in for that. Turn on your notifications, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You'll get notified when that episode drops. Make sure you are subscribed to the Draft Geeks podcast. We're not going away. We're going to give you guys a lot of summer content, summer scouting, perhaps some dynasty fantasy stuff.
For sure, some dynasty fantasy stuff.
For sure, there you have it. For sure, some dynasty.
I'm telling you, that one league I'm in is a sicko league for some reason, and we've already drafted. We did a slow draft. We drafted 2 days after the actual draft, and I was still trying to gather my thoughts. Like, hey, who do I want to take here? I don't think there was 2 picks that took over an hour to make, but we had it on a 12-hour limit. Yeah. But there were 2 picks that took, that's just because they were trying to trade the picks. They didn't want to draft there and stuff. But we got done with a slow 12-hour per pick dynasty draft in 2 days. And that was 2 days after the draft. So I was like, this league's for sickos. So I'm all in the dynasty right now, bro. I'm ready for the
We're going to give you guys some dynasty fantasy content. So stick around for that. You're not going to want to miss us throughout the summer. And then, of course, when the season rolls around, you know where to find us. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You got anything before we wrap this up, Jace?
Nope. Get ready for the NFC episode because, there will be a little bit more lower grades if you want to hear on us talk bad about some teams.
There we go. All right. Well, for Jace Campbell over at the Pats Drive, make sure you're following him. For Max Showstack over at the Draft Geek, make sure you're following my account. We will see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for listening, as always.